Okay. Okay. Hi, and thank you for being here. Some months ago, we had a Perl meetup in Bern, and we had some visitors from the Netherlands. And there, we discussed several issues around Perl and Perl 6, and it was a nice meetup. And I've got an idea there, and I have the urge to further develop this idea, and I also need discussion and input. So the reason I'm here is actually not just because I have to present and to tell, but I want to offer ideas, and also I'm seeking for some input. Title: Bringing Perl 6 to Generation Z. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of these terms in Generation Z. Apparently, like young people nowadays, that's the Generation Z, ultimate generation, and don't know what's coming afterwards. But actually, I'm asking myself the same for the Perl 6 versioning, but I'm sure there are answers, right? The Perl 6C. I'm not sure how this is ending, but I'm sure somebody else knows. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, just Generation Z. How's Perl 6 after Z? What's going on there? Nobody knows. Really? Okay. So yeah, I haven't been able to follow the discussion, so I just put this slide in. No updates here. I just decided I'm talking about Perl 6. That's fine. Okay, about me. I'm Boris. Just some information. My CPAN account. I was working in the Swiss banking sector around the year 2000, and they kind of introduced me into Perl. Actually, they kind of forced me against my will into Perl, but I left the banks many years ago and stayed with Perl ever since. Currently, I'm working as an IT teacher, and my talk will also be around that. I'm working at a vocational school. This means there are students from 15 to 18 years, and they make professional educations. This means they are actually employed at companies, but they visit us for some theoretical input. How does this look like? I see literally, it just started this week, I see around 200 different students each week. And in relation to Perl, currently, next semester, there will be around approximately 140 students hacking on Perl code each year since now 3 years. My goal in general, I've set myself, is I want to start using Perl 6 starting from this workshop on. So that's the reason I'm talking to you. Just as a brief, that you get some idea how my relation to Perl looks like. I actually talked about it last year. We had a workshop on my workplace. Some of you were there. For me, Perl 5 is really a glue language, and it has been a glue language ever since I met Perl. So I just continued this tradition. Students don't always know I'm using Perl. Also, colleagues often don't know. There's the Perl behind the scenes. I'm using it to detect plagiarism in exams where they have to program. I use it for my personal workflow to create multiple choice. There's some code that's visible maybe to students, but it's not really it doesn't matter that it's Perl. For example, there are example implementations of some algorithms we speak about in the class, or I can gather like feedback from students and stuff like that. just this summer I made some new stuff. I need to teach students how to install and connect databases, so I wrote a DBI application, and my idea, we will see if it works out, is that students can choose any database they want to work with, and that we'll succeed in connecting my application to all those databases. The stuff I'm really thinking about now hard for changing to Perl 6 is the last one, the security module. And I will continue on this one later on. It's a module where the focus is for application developers to gain some knowledge about secure programming, basic knowledge, injection type of stuff. So Perl 5 for me was and is a very powerful tool. It's my parachute from bulky, predefined environments. It's my personal tool, and I often end up doing some rapid prototypes, and those things stay most of the time. Now the crucial part is this security module, because that's actually really a module where I confront students directly with Perl code. Now the aim is not that they learn Perl, but that they learn scan an application for, also by eye, I mean, for problematic code maybe, and fix it. The design goal when I created this was to abstract from the real world complexity, because for most people, especially for students, also for me, like if you dive into a real world application, protocols become very fast, very complex, and if you're not very knowledgeable about it, it's difficult to really find the actual problem and to not miss important parts. So I wanted them to focus really on the core problematic, and I reduced as far as possible. This actually means I implemented everything from scratch, which in hindsight maybe was not the best idea, but we will see. Just some examples that you have an idea what I'm talking about, how this looks like. So, can you just have an estimation? Maybe you have a desktop, we have a server. This is all VMs. And then we have a server running, an application with a database, and we have a terminal client in this case, or even browser access. And the protocol I've made is really, really simple. I'm also not an expert in that, but I just told myself I need a session ID and I need some message. So for example, a login looks like you just send over TCP some zeros, the command login and some values, and maybe the server replies then with a session ID and a reply. And the next request would then store this, use this session ID. The advantage with this, you can really watch this closely on the network. You can see exactly what happens. There's not much else going on. Yes, so we can just have a look at it, how this then would look like. The students have the VMs. They can, for example, start the server, and then they can, for example, log in. And yes, it's not a good idea to make the password on the command line, and that's something they can then patch. So then a hello comes back, or they just can make a list and add an option and then get the ls-a output, for example. Very, very simple. So that's what the code does. The idea behind it is we really try to be close on the machine that they have to do stuff. It's not reading some material and answering some question. It's now fix it, do it on the machine. Okay. So this then, for example, students are faced with such an implementation. This is now Perl 5. We have there an implementation of this list code you just saw. I sent this list command to the server. And now my aim was I don't want students to convince from Perl. I just want to give them some readable code. So I used this function. I did extra effort to make readable code. I used function parameters so that it reads just method, that I have some arguments, and they can pass the options, and then here the implementation is not very good, but that's on purpose. It's actually very vulnerable because they can make here shell injections. They can pass any options, also semicolons and other commands, and that's the whole point. That's the whole idea. Yeah. Yes. Okay, that works fine. It looks fine, and they have my experience is they understand what's going on. This module here is called from a controller, which depending on the command the client sends, switches what modules they load. Switch. How do I do this? That's the problems you face. You're programming in Perl 5, but you want to keep the Perl history, like protect the students from it. Students know switch statements. How would you do it? I would return the yeah, I'm sure there are better ways that I'm just used given, right? Where is it? You see it, yeah, here. So that's just a given. It works. I'm aware there's. Can I make it bigger? It's not important. I use given and very, very ancient. By regex, I check which command is sent, and then I load the module. So that's current state, how it looks like. But what I actually want to talk about is like how students received it so far in 3 years. And the message is actually mostly neutral, which is actually, for me, it was surprising, and it's actually a good thing. They understand the code, another good thing. But also, like, it's not seen as really something relevant for themselves. It's more like, it's also nothing exciting. It's more like, because our students are in the companies, they all have different programming language background. So it's like, you want to paint this room. You can't decide which color because one likes red, the other one likes green, so you just paint it like gray. You could also make an argument that like Perl is this role, like nobody has really an opinion, nobody likes it, nobody dislikes it. So, but it's not bad. A feedback from the students to the architecture, like this reduction I've tried. It's good, it helps understanding, but still they prefer a relevant technology stack, like real life architecture. My feeling about the whole situations, I noticed there's really a lot of web developers nowadays, also in our classes. So like currently this whole server is implemented as a daemon, and they're not interested in that. And I feel like I'm always bending Perl 5 a bit too far just to tailor it to the audience, and that's not. It's not always a good feeling. And I what I want to do, I don't want to just give them an application where they can hack on. I also want to show them stuff they can be excited about. So I tried to look up some stereotypes about this generation Z, and actually I'm not convinced that these generation patterns make any sense, but one can just assume so. So they're about 20 years, a bit older, a bit younger, and apparently, I mean, that fact, they don't really know a world without internet. For them, it's just, it has been here forever. They all have smartphones. They're very capable with all these user technologies. They're very connected. Also, facts that I've experienced personally, they never heard of Perl, not positive, not negative. They, in general, have really high expectations on technology. They're used to high abstractions from machines. Often, because we use a lot of virtual machines in the classroom, they sometimes even have difficulties to translate it back to real machines. For example, all the networking and routing and everything. Also, application developers often are very used to big development frameworks, editors, and they can't compile anything on a command line. Also used to high abstraction, and also a bit used to this so-called industry standard, which you all know in some way or another.
So
yes?
Do we actually have an idea that there's a computer somewhere or not? Or is it just something abstract that's in the cloud and they
No.
there's a CPU somewhere doing something?
Yes, they know. Yes. It's not that bad yet. But it's really interesting because I just had this thought yesterday, like, as I just said, they have difficulties to adopt, for example, the network configuration then, or like mount a CD-ROM. They need to go to options and simulate a CD-ROM and choose an ISO file. And they have no clue, actually, in old times we opened. But then I turned it upside down and I realized I'm not. No, but apparently in industries, in networking, everything gets virtualized too. Yeah. So it's not actually that they don't know anymore what they're doing, but also in industry, different stuff is needed, and they need to be able to just know the virtual version of it. Yeah. Now, if you Google these terms, you will find a lot of stereotypes, and they haven't convinced me much. Yeah, so I just listed some. I mean, every time is a bit different, so I don't know. You can think of it what you like. But maybe they're good memers, I don't know. We will, we will see.
Sarcasm is underrated.
Yeah. So, but I feel like maybe there's somewhere a void developing where there's an opportunity. Because this generation, I have the feeling for them it has always been only one way to do it. Pure efficiency thinking, which in itself is not just bad, but it's just this. No real alternatives, and technology in general pushed by large companies or just large organizations. And maybe there can be a reawakening of this Perl, I call it now Perl philosophy, and maybe it can appeal to this generation sooner or later in its newest implementation or reincarnation. Maybe there is more than one way to do it will once be celebrated again. Maybe it can be a good thing if there's just volunteers and community and unbound energy that's behind something and not just big corporation interest. And if people talk about Perl, they never underline, if they talk about they talk about it in lack of support from enterprises, but you can flip it upside down actually, and you can see something positive in it. I mean, the whole open source movement has always made it their value actually, and I don't know why Perl cannot, or the Perl philosophy and all the implementations cannot lift this more on the foreground, because actually it is maybe very valuable. So my wish, my idea is to re-implement this module, this code, and change a bit the structure. But basically, it's just database, server, and a client. It's always the same. But maybe that's an idea Liz gave me. Thank you for that. Maybe you're not aware of it anymore. But use this so-called microservice trend. And I'm saying trend because like that's something, when you use this word to these young students, they will recognize it. Like the best of the class, they will say, ah, yeah, I know it. That's something I want to learn. It's still like, as far as I'm aware, these microservices, the whole protocols, it's still simple protocols. It's actually low abstraction, if you want to call it so. It's easy to grasp. So for those who don't know, it's just this REST API and JSON sent back. Basically, there's more behind it, but that's not the point. It's just it has to serve as an example to make some injections and prevent them. All open. It needs to have some very, very clear interfaces where students can work on. Yeah. And I prefer it really on text-based, like simple. Yeah. So the idea that arose at the last meetup was maybe Crow could serve as a library that provides a lot that is needed. And maybe there's more. The thing is, I've factually never really yet tried Perl 6, and it's now the time I want to start trying. My motivation is just I want to provide the youth something playful they can be excited about, and that way learn about this stuff. And I just see this promise of technology for the future, this parallelism, these concepts. On the machine side, a very high abstraction, and also this kind of internationalism, but like community-driven. And to make it a reality, I need to somehow find a start. I'm using GitLab. If somebody likes to help me, I can also switch the place. Maybe it makes sense to use the same repository as the old code. Maybe it makes sense to make a new repository. What I really need badly is just suggestions for libraries, coaching. Also, the more you teach, the less you know about microservices and sockets and this and that. So there's just some guidance is very, very helpful that you run in the right direction. And if there's coming help from other people, it's really maybe also worth about thinking if this could be further used than just in my class. The problem I see here is like I need vulnerable code.
You can take mine.
So, but because that's real problem, because when I speak to other older IT stuff and I'm saying like, yeah, I'm teaching IT security, I'm using Perl and I'm making vulnerable code. They just, they agree, yeah, Perl, right. Yeah. And I actually had this once in a final exam, a practical exam. the student made big security holes in his application and he used Perl, but it was not an application developer, it was a system administrator. It was not that big of a problem, but I showed how I can misuse it, and the boss, the IT boss, concluded, we shouldn't have used Perl, which made me kind of upset, because that wasn't the problem. Okay. So I want to give this now a start. I want to make very clear I'm not getting any salary for this. I'm just making it for my motivation, for teaching option fun. And if you have any input, any knowledge, we can just talk right now. I can take some notes. Maybe I will have a glance at the books if I find something. And we'll see. Semester starts February. I'm not sure I will make it till then, but next year is also another year. Also, just as a last thing, this summer I was making something for the system administration kids, and I just had the thought, what does Perl 6 offer here? Because like to my knowledge, Perl was very strong in system administration, then went to this application development, and there things got complicated. I'm not sure how Perl 6 community has considered system administration.
Almost all the Perl 6 core developers use Perl 6 for their system administration.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice framework.
So there I'm also very, very happy if I get some input. My first attempt for something is just, students nowadays, like, they're young, they're like 16, it's their third semester. Most don't know what a one-liner is, and I can tell them, I can teach them this forbidden knowledge. So
secret incantation.
banned knowledge. And like my first, let me see, I just need to scroll down. Just that you see my first attempt. Where is it? Yeah. Not sure if I can make it large. How do I make this go away? Just let. Full screen, anybody?
Minus
Here. Okay, yeah, that's a good one. I don't need this here, can I?
Da oben der Knopf in der.
Der?
Einschieber.
Der?
Eventuell den weg.
Oh, den.
Weg.
Maybe the one on top.
I will try.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And the plus. So that's my first attempt. You can see I also included Python. That's the best I could come up with. The task is to split a comma separated values file and print the first line, and the winner is Perl 5. Included in the charge is, they need to print insert statements. And winner, including insert statement code, is Perl 5. Perl 6 is on place 5, but still quite elegant solution. That's what I was coming up with. That's what you can give me some input if you know something cooler, because I think that's the first time those students will be confronted with one-liners, and I can give them some examples. That's all I have for Perl and my plans in the education sector. Thank you for any input and for listening and for being here. If input starts coming, I will need to take notes. I need to organize myself. But I'm done.
Nobody questions?
Oh, questions? Yes. Questions, sorry.
Exciting with a C. Yeah.
Exciting what?
Exciting. It's not. You wrote exiting. Exciting.
I'm sure I meant exiting.
Yes. So
I wrote it.
The students exiting. You want them to go?
I wrote it in Vim, and I have no.
We wrote it several times. without the C.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so it's a habit, yeah.
Yes, it had some interesting effect. Somebody like, he wants his students to go.
Yeah, it's the last talk.
There's one thing that I dislike about this example.
Yes.
Is that, okay, one-liners are fine, but do we really have to count the number of times?
No, I'm agreeing completely, and I have here a note where I comment about it. It can be cool, but it's very limited. And in my point of view, it's just some people just like to have somewhere in a wiki something they can quickly copy paste. Maybe it's handy, but for everything else, I'm completely agreeing, and I'm not supporting this as something they should do. I'm just showing them a glance. This exists, but that's it. Maybe I will remove it one time. It was just, I also want to have some fun writing this stuff, and I thought it's fun because they don't know the concept at all.
Also, I assume there's no Unicode characters in
No, there's not. Is every solution a problem, or just a specific one?
I think in the sorry, oh, you're ready. Okay, I was looking wrong. Sorry, you're using capital E. That's good.
Yes. But that's just a minor detail here. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
So you said that the students are kind of indifferent to Perl.
Yes.
Do they express any interest in any other language? Do they say, you know, this or that?
Python, JHipster.
Hipster.
Yeah, there's apparently a framework called JHipster. Yeah, it's
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
those who express anything. It's mostly like it needs to be cool somehow, but that's the age also.
Well, retro is also in these days. So if you come into your class with a big record and say, "You kids know what this is?" Like a phonograph record.
Yeah, maybe.
Or you come in with an 8-inch floppy disk or a 3-inch. This is retro cool.
It's a difficult question because I was for sure generalizing heavily because there are 200 individuals. But in the companies, there are some people around here, they are in the companies and they face a lot of diverse programming languages, but those students, they don't see those places in those companies. They more, I'm assuming they're more, it's application developers I'm talking about, they meet more like these official, poster boy languages, or I don't know how you want to call them. And that's what they know. And that's, even if they are interested in open source or community, there's also big communities there. So they really have no reason to think anything else, like from just their point of experience. Like I see application developers hacking some, like they're on the command line in Linux, we have maybe scripting, and or not even, and they want to do something and they just type Python, and they achieve what they want, and that's cool, but that's it, and yeah, there's no alternative to it in my experience. So, yeah.
Do you know anything about how the situation is with university students? Or?
No, not at all. And I really need to mention for not Swiss people, like that's a completely different field. Like apprenticeship is completely different. Also completely different kind of mindset of students. It's not the same. I have no clue how it is there.
You're training them to be programmers versus
they're not engineers. I mean, they can move up the ladder. There are plenty of ways. They can also end up in universities, but it's like it's very close to companies, also to the industry. It's a special system. Yeah.
Do they have they still have systems that are dedicated to machine, like the old line called the old PDP-11, which still have
like what do you mean by they?
Well, or we used to use PDP-11s to control
Ah.
systems.
Okay, like in application development and system whatever. No, I mean we have other professions, but those are nowadays maybe. I'm not even sure what you're talking about because I'm not.
If you
But
have a CNC machine, an automatic cutting
no,
machine,
we have.
automatic tooling, an automatic robot.
That would be.
that'd be
We have electronic professions. We have also mechanic professions, and
so
that would
that's
probably
like-
be those. Yes.
they don't do
So
that.
like application development is really like framed heavily nowadays. Really.
Yeah, it's no longer as broad.
No.
When
They
we
don't-
changed
No.
the general college course on computer programming, they had their database course there.
They can make data.
Also get one on, well, my DP-11, train you how to move the computer or left and right and stick ball.
Like application developers, when they're finished, they have. It depends. There's also always the good students and the lesser. But in general, they will be able to program websites, but not necessarily deploy websites. They will be able to make database queries. They will be able to use a programming framework. They will have basic concepts of all network and stuff. But that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.